Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Raja Jana Randana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Dorpanandi, Jomshtapad, Paramahamsa Parvatata, Asa Sata Shishmata Bhangasa, Bhaktivanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the Summa devotees. All glories to the Summa devotees. All glories to the Summa devotees. Ugly Shishiguru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadiriyat. Before citing the Srimad Bhagavatam, which should offer a basis of the Supreme Personality Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hibhadrani Vidhinoti Suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the Paramatma, Supersoul, in everyone's heart, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who desires, who has developed an urge to read his transcendental messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nasta Presho Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Vasevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome in the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service under the Supreme Lord is established as an irrevocable fact. Irrevocable fact. I love that. Okay, so we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, I forgot already, chapter 9, text 7, I believe. Is that what's up there? I remember properly. Daivena te hata diyo bhavata prasangat. Daivena te hata diyo bhavata prasangat. That's the wrong meter. Daivena te hata diyo bhavata prasangat. Daivena te hata diyo bhavata prasangat. Sarva shubha pasamata Sarva shubha pasamanad vimukhendriyat ye. 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 Korvanti kama sukale shalavaya dina. Korvanti kama sukale salavaya dina. Lobha vibhuta manaso kulashani shashvat. Lobha vibhuta manaso kulashani shashvat. Tavena te hata diyo bhavata prasangat. Tavena te hata diyo bhavata prasangat. Sarva shubha pasa shamanad vimukhendriyaye. Sarva shubha samanad vimukhendriyaye. Korvanti kama sukale shalavaya dina. Korvanti kama sukale shalavaya dina. Lobha vibhuta manaso kushalani shashvat. Lobha vibhuta manaso kushalani shashvat. Daivena, by fate of misfortune. Te, they. Hata diyaha, bereft of memory. Bhavataha, of you. Prasangat, from the topics. Sarva, all. Ashubha, inauspiciousness. Upashamanat, curbing down. Vimukha, turned against. Indriya, senses. Yea, those. Karvanti, act. Kama, sense gratification. Sukha, happiness. Lesha, brief. Lavaya, for a moment only. Dinaha, poor fellows. Lobha avibhuta, overwhelmed by greed. manasaha, of one whose mind, akushalani, inauspicious activities, sashvat, always. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O my Lord, persons who are bereft of the all-auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. Purport. The next question is why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence. The only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. The Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons and, in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service. I was born into ignorance, but by the grace of my spiritual master, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances unto him. So I'd like to beg for all of your blessings. Without the mercy of a devotee, one cannot accomplish anything, or to speak of spiritual life, even in any endeavor. So please give me your blessing so I may say something uplifting and meaningful for the pleasure of their lordships. Shraddha, Vrindari, Krishna Balaram, Giri Govardhana, Shishi Gornitai. So this is quite a nice verse. Srila Prabhupada makes some important points in this purport, which I wanted to highlight. The first one is this idea of unfortunate people. He talks about bereft of good sense, and it's kind of interesting because this bereft of good sense, in the word for word, it mentions. If I can find it here, bereft of memory, hatha diyaha, bereft of memory, right? So bereft of good sense. And it's described in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna gives knowledge or remembrance. So one may ask, why would Krishna cause us to be bereft of good memory or bereft of common sense? And as with all things, it's due to our desires, because we don't want to have good sense. We want to enjoy our senses. We want to lord it over the material nature. And so that memory is taken away, or that good sense is taken away. And so these unfortunate souls are floundering about in the material world. And there's a nice statement in the purport. This idea of sense gratification, it mentions here they engage in inauspicious activities, right? Well, why are these inauspicious activities? Why is this sense gratification considered inauspicious activities? And ultimately, there's a couple of points here. Ultimately, it's because it causes us to be thieves or plunderers, you could say. That everything, if we examine very closely, our body, our mind, of course we understand the elements, earth, air, fire, water, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. All these elements, we didn't create them. Our bodies are made of these things, so we didn't create them. Therefore, our body does not belong to us. Mind, intelligence, and false ego, these things do not belong to us. They're given to us. So all of these energies that we utilize every day do not belong to us. Therefore, with the results of those activities don't belong to us either. But we use our intelligence and we use our conditioned person, not all of you devotees, but conditioned souls use these things for sense gratification. Therefore, they're taking something, they're taking their body, their energies, their intelligence, and whatever material things they're manipulating for the results of that, and they're using it for their own sense gratification. So they're taking something that doesn't belong to them, they're using it for themselves. So this is inauspicious activity. It makes them cheaters. And this idea about why we do that, how we can do that, it's stated, there's a nice verse, very famous, I'm sure you've heard it in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 7. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvishaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. It's a very, very important verse. We think we're controlling things. We think, well, I had some education, I got a degree, I got a PhD, therefore I worked hard for so many years. So the efforts of those things I should be able to utilize because it was my work. But we don't understand that the intelligence by which we were able to get that degree, by the strength of our beating heart while we were able to move our muscles, that all came from Krishna. We didn't will those things into being. They were given to us. And yet we think we're doing it. So Prabhupada makes a nice statement in the purport to that verse. It says, the person in false ego, takes all credit for doing everything independently. And that is the symptoms of his nescience, his ignorance. He does not know that this gross and subtle body is the creation of material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of Krishna, in Krishna consciousness. So one of the names for Krishna is Hrishikesh. He's the master of the senses. So if the body which we inhabit and our intelligence and our mind, if all these things belong to Krishna, and ultimately our very existence belongs to Krishna, we didn't will ourselves into existence. Our very existence was given by Krishna. So if all these things belong to him, then whatever we do with these things, whatever we do with our energies or intelligence belong to him and should be offered unto him. And it's quite fascinating, the potency of devotional service, because by engaging in devotional service, we can capture the Lord. He actually becomes control. And yet, all we're doing is returning to him what's already his, right? This is if you picture a young girl, the father's at work and she wants to offer him something, so the mother goes in the kitchen and they get out the flour and the sugar and the oven, and practically speaking, the mother bakes the cake, but the child helps. And so then the child takes this cake, which is contained of ingredients that the father paid for, using an oven the father paid for, using a kitchen the father paid for, using the stirring arm of the mother. Everything is done by someone other than the child, but she puts this cake together and she offers it to the father when he comes home. And how does he feel? The father just melts. Oh, this is so nice. Look, she's offered me this cake. Well, why? These things belong to him. They weren't something that he didn't already possess, but because of the love of the child of wanting to do that, it melts the heart of the father. So in the same way, when we use our intelligence, our body, our strength, the material elements, we gather flowers. We didn't create these flowers, they're there, but we take some energy to gather them. We offer them to the Lord. The Lord's very pleased. We're simply giving him what's already his. And yet that love, these things that we're doing are simply the vehicles. They're just a container which carries that love. And so that love, Krishna hankers for very, very much. It controls him. It captures his heart. So this supernatural control that's discussed here is controlling these living entities to misuse these senses and do these things for themselves, thus cutting them off from this devotional service, and instead they're devoted to their senses. And it's interesting, it's described for a little while. It's very fleeting, right? They engage in inauspicious activities. Why are they inauspicious? We just discussed, because they're taking something that should be offered to the Lord, and they're taking it for their own pleasure. So this is not good. This is very entangling. And it says, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. So this is a topic that I find quite fascinating. The flip side of that, this very little while comes from the word lavaya. This is the negative version, that this enjoyment we can only experience for a few moments. The flip side of that, lava, there's another very famous verse, if I can remember it, sadhu sangha, sarva shastrikoi, lava matra sarva sangha, sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. I think that's close. And the basic purport of this lava mantra, again, assume the root word lavaya, it means a moment. It actually means 1/11th of a second. This is this moment. So this sense gratification, if you examine it, we seek after something, we put so much effort, we contemplate it, it's coming, and then the next thing we know, it's over. And it's gone. It's like, well, what happened to it? I thought I was enjoying, and we have a few moments of the enjoyment, and then there's some reaction, or it goes away, and then we're thinking, what's the next thing I can do? That's why the material nature, when one is consumed with material enjoyment, they have to always be doing something new. They need more money, more this, more that, go here, go there, because the actual enjoyment, it's not possible for us to experience. And it's described in Srila Prabhupada's books that the DNA, the gene required to enjoy, we don't possess it. It's impossible for us to enjoy. The only person who possesses the DNA, the gene that gives enjoyment is Krishna. So when we use our efforts to give Krishna pleasure and give him enjoyment, then we feel satisfaction, then we feel contentment. You could call it enjoyment, but we're really feeling Krishna's enjoyment. When Krishna enjoys, we're in ecstasy. We're very, very happy. If we try to enjoy separately from him, it's impossible, because we're not the enjoyer. We don't possess the capability of enjoyment. We possess the capability to give enjoyment to the Supreme Lord. And when Krishna experiences enjoyment, then we're satisfied. Our soul, to the depth of his being, feels satisfaction. We may call it enjoyment, and it feels like enjoyment, and in one sense it is, but it's not independent enjoyment. We're experiencing Krishna's enjoyment. And so anyway, that's I got a little sidetracked from my point, but that's the reason the sense gratification is so bewildering and entangling, is because we're taking that propensity to enjoy, we're using it ourselves, and it just entangles us in the material energies. When we utilize that enjoying spirit to give pleasure to Krishna, to Krishna's devotees, then we feel satisfied without any entanglement. So to come back to this lava matra, this lavaya, so this enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. It's very, very brief if we try to do independent. The flip side of that, a little bit of a segue, this lava mantra, this 1/11th of a second. So the purport, the translation of that verse, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra, the verdict of all revealed scriptures, right? Sarva shastra. The purport, the verdict of all revealed scriptures is that even by a moment's association, again, a moment is what? 1/11th of a second. A moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. So there's a nice pastime describing this, that His Holiness Giriraj Swami described as Sadhu Sangha one time. And there was a drunkard. Narada Muni passed by, and Narada Muni tried to give him some instruction. And the drunkard was too intoxicated and too addicted to his intoxication to receive any instruction. He didn't want to have it. He wasn't interested. So Narada Muni said, okay, just remember this one thing. You're going to die, and when you die, the Yamadutas are going to come from you because of your sinful activities. They're going to drag you away. It's guaranteed. When they come, just remember this one thing. No matter how intoxicated, remember this one thing. When they come for you, and they will come for you, ask them, what is the benefit of a moment's association with the devotee? Just remember that question. And somehow, in the midst of a stupor, this drunkard managed to remember that question. And some time went by, and sure enough, he passed away, and the Yamadutas came for him, and he managed to remember this question. So he asked the Yamadutas, What's the value of a moment's association with a devotee? They couldn't answer it. They said, well, we don't know. We'll have to take you to Yamaraj. So they took him to Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Yamaraj, what's the benefit of the moment's association with a devotee? Yamaraj didn't know. He couldn't answer. He has to go to his boss. And so they went. Lord Brahma, all the way up. Nobody could answer the question. So finally they go, there's the whole party, they're all there. Lord Brahma, Indra, Yamaraj, Yamadutas, this drunkard. And they come to Vaikuntha to approach Vishnu because Lord Brahma couldn't answer the question. He has to go to his boss. So they're standing on their shores. They ask Lord Vishnu, please, none of us can answer. Can you answer this question? What is the moment's association worth? What's the benefit of it? And Vishnu said, well, you're here, aren't you? So Vaikuntha is that place from once you go, you never return. And according to the Shastras, it's not possible for a drunkard who's commits sinful activities to go to Vaikuntha. He hasn't earned that right. He's not qualified. He's committed sinful activity. He has no interest in worshiping God. What to speak of worshiping God? He doesn't even commit any pious activities. He's got a load full of karma backed up. And yet here he is in Vaikuntha, from which he will never return. He's in the spiritual world. How did he get there? From 1/11th of a second association, from just a moment association with Narada Muni, here he is. So this is the potency of this association of devotees. It's very, very powerful. And in the same way, this lavaya, this moment's pleasure that we try to get out of the material energies is not possible. It's very, very fleeting. It comes with a great deal of difficulty. And if it's very low grade, if it's in the modes of ignorance and passion, whatever pleasure you may eke out comes usually with some reaction. And then you have to pay the bill for it. You can go on vacation, you buy this, you buy that, you get some pleasure. Now you have to pay your credit card bill. Now you have to pay off whatever it is. Either you pay before or you pay after. You work very hard to get some money, or you pay it off later. Either way, for a little bit of so-called pleasure, there's so much entanglement and reaction. So that's the point that's being made here with this. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. The other point that's really important is this last state in the purport. The Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons, and in a missionary spirit try to persuade them in the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service. So this is an important point, that Bhakti Yoga is so powerful that by engaging in it, just even a little bit, Krishna becomes captured, Krishna becomes controlled. And because of that, he doesn't give it out easily. It's not like if you want to see the president, head of state, you don't just call the number, knock on the door and say, hello, I'd like an appointment. You have to be invited in. You have to know who to talk to. You have to have some qualification. So to be in a position where you can capture Krishna's heart, that you can enter into a very intimate relationship with him, you have to be invited. He has to ask you. He has to bring you in. And he doesn't do that directly. He does that through his devotees. It's described as so many different ways, that if you want to know whether Krishna is giving you mercy, if you want to know if Krishna is pleased with you, then look around you and see, do I have the association of devotees? If you have association of devotees, then that's proof, that's evidence that Krishna is giving you his mercy. Because through the devotees will teach you and show you how you can attract Krishna, how you can serve him, how you can please him. It's invitation only. You can't force your way in. You can't just say, I want to go there. There's a nice description given in a japa retreat many years ago. He gives it's frequently the same topic comes up, but His Holiness Satyananda Swami describes how there's 3 different gates in the heart, keeping us from experiencing this pure love for Krishna. And the first 2 if I remember correctly. One is sort of on the physical level. We have to just control the senses, and I'm paraphrasing, but we have to control the senses and be peaceful and engage in chanting and so many things. The next one is the mind, that we have to control the mind and direct it. But the point is, these first two gates we can control through our efforts and our knowledge and our spiritual practices. We can open those gates. The third gate we don't open. It's locked on the inside. And it has to be opened by the Supreme Lord Himself. Krishna has to open that gate. And that's the gate. When that one opens, then we have a very deep, intimate, loving relationship with the Lord of our heart. But it has to be open from the inside. So how do we do that? We can't force it. We can't really do anything. I heard a wonderful class long time ago by His Grace Sadhaputta Prabhu. The late Sadhaputta Prabhu is no longer with us. He's a scientist. He's a mathematician. And he described, in terms of physics and atoms and molecules, in a way that I can't repeat, he described how we actually have no control over anything. We have zero control. If we want to move our hand, and we used to have a Bhakti Yoga Club with the University of Maryland students, and some of the students were studying robotics, and I gave this explanation. I asked him if this is true. He said, "Yeah, it's actually even more intense than that." So the point is, if we want to take a glass of water, if we want to drink a glass of water, say I'm thirsty, I'm going to drink some water. If we had to actually understand how many calculations are needed to drink that water, we have to move our bones at a certain angle, and then our wrists. We have to apply so much pressure to the cup. There's the nervous system, it has to be involved. Is the water hot or cold enough? We have to tilt it. If you were to build a robot to do that, it would be hundreds of thousands of lines of code just to do the movement. Then it would take another team hundreds of thousands of lines of code to do the nervous system, the electronics for it. And they have to coordinate. Now you've got your nerves and your muscles and your bones. So you've got under millions of lines of code to get a robot, and then the robot will probably pour it in the wrong place because it's a robot. So the point is, we don't think of any of that. How many of us process hundreds of thousands of calculations to drink a glass of water? We don't. We say, I'm thirsty, and the water goes into our mouth. So who's doing all these calculations if our mind's not doing it? Well, this is Super Soul. He's saying, oh, you're thirsty? Okay. He'll instruct through the agent of Super Soul, the nervous system, the muscles, the bone, everything kicks in, and we get our thirst quenched, which is a whole other topic about Rasahamapsukunteya, the taste of water. The fact that water quenches our thirst, as Bhagavad Gita is described. I'm the taste of water. That water is Krishna in a very real sense. That's why it quenches our thirst. So the point is, we have no control over beating our heart, most if not all of the functions of our body. The one thing we have control over is desire. We desire, and then Super Soul kicks in. So how we get Krishna to open that gate of the heart is we desire. We want Him. If we want to see Krishna, we want to please Krishna, then we have to desire to do that at whatever cost. And when He sees that desire, then if He's kind enough to give us a drink of water, or even if we're a just materialistic, sinful person, He quenches our thirst. And how much more is He going to fulfill the desire for us to develop love so we can please Him? So this is an important point about utilizing our desire properly. And when we misuse it, then we get this description about bereft of memory, hatha diya. We become bereft of good sense. Our intelligence goes away. If we misuse it, then we lose it. So it's important that we use it properly. We use our desire properly, and our intelligence proper, and so forth. So I think I'll stop there. I've been known to carry on far too long, so I'm going to try not to do that, and see if we have any questions or comments or corrections. Yes, Mata.
Thank you very much for the lovely class, Prabhu. There's just a sentence in this purport that puzzles me. It is the only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. Would you explain a little bit about that supernatural control?
Yes, I can. That was what I was trying to explain with this verse, and I didn't do a very good job of it. But it's Bhagavad Gita 3:27, right? Let me repeat this. And the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So we think we're doing whatever it is we're doing, but in actuality it is carried out by the three modes. So this is hard to understand, but very important and very powerful. That supernatural control is the three modes of energy. We think, and it goes very deep, we think, well, I have such and such intelligence, I'm very smart, I can remember things. That intelligence is due to our karma and our desires from previous lives. And as we engage with the material modes and we make choices to engage with the material energies, whether it's what we eat or what music we listen to or who we associate with or what books we read, we're always making choices to engage with the material energies. And as soon as we do that, then we're turning over control to those material modes of nature, so to speak. I think of it in terms of sense of good and sense of real. We can't control what we think is real. We become afraid of something. Some people are afraid of bats, or some people are afraid of this or that. But we can't control what we think is good. So if I think money's very good and I work very hard to get money, then I'm going to fear losing money. And I'm going to fear paying taxes, and so I'm going to have to buy big locks and get good banks to keep my money. I'm afraid of losing it. But if I don't think money has value, and I just live very simply, it doesn't matter if they take things away, because those things don't mean anything to me anyway. You look at a mendicant. The first time I went to India, it blew my mind. I saw people who had nothing, literally nothing. They may have a chadar, and maybe they had some cloth around their body, and they slept on a cot in the middle of the highway, and you look at their face, and they're peaceful. And yes, they're suffering, but they're peaceful, and they're kind to you, and they have a certain tolerance for these things. And I said, I can't, how do they do it? I couldn't be peaceful in that situation. And I realized how many things I think I need and how much this person has, and I'm not happy with everything I have. This person has nothing and they're happy. There's something wrong with this equation. So when we have a sense of good, when we think this is good, whatever it is that we value to think is good, in a material sense, is it money, is it power, is it 5 cars, I have to have a Tesla, I have to have a 3-car garage, I have to have electricity, whatever it is, if we're attached to those things, then we're going to fear losing those things. We're going to be encumbered by having them. So this is a supernatural control that we think we're the doer. Again, back to the desire. I can't control the water getting into my mouth. I can only be thirsty. And then the material energies kick over. Super soul kicks in, the modes of nature kick in, and we get association, we get thoughts, we get different energies. So it's a little difficult for me to explain, but that's what's being described here in this supernatural control, is how, because of their offensive mentality of wanting to enjoy themselves, the material modes kick in. And if you see people that are very materialistic, they're not happy, and they're controlled by so many things. I used to live in San Diego, where I joined the movement. A few blocks, not blocks, maybe a few miles from the temple was a town called La Jolla, very, very prestigious, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Southern California, or at least in San Diego. You would think everybody there being blessed, because they've all got so much money, huge houses, nice cars. They don't have a worry in the world. And yet they pull up to the stop sign, and then a pedestrian wants to walk across, and they're honking their horns. Like, they're very irritated. They get agitated at the smallest things. And this is not uncommon for very, very wealthy or materialistic people. They get irritated at the simplest things because they're controlled by these modes. They don't have control of their senses. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, I can take it that supernatural control is the interaction of the
three modes of nature. Which is outside of us, but also in us. Mind, intelligence, false ego. In our mind we have a certain mode. We think somebody thinks classical music is the best. Someone else thinks no, you should listen to flutes or guitars. Music has different modes, and so that modes are without us. They're also within us, and that controls us.
Nicely explained. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else have a question?
Thank you for the class. You mentioned about how materialists, they just want to enjoy their senses, and the question is that even us as aspiring devotees, we are, as you also rightly mentioned, that we are always making choices, but is it that sometimes it feels that we still, after some time of practice, it's still, we are being pushed by the modes, and so is it just that we continue hearing and continue devotional service despite our materialistic desires, and hope that Krishna will help us?
Yes, it's a good question. And not just hope, we should know that Krishna will help us. And there's many verses indicating that. So there's two things that yes, it's a long time. We're trying in this one lifetime to reverse the momentum from billions of lifetimes in the other direction. And so it might take a little time. It might take a little effort. Why isn't it happening now? I've been practicing devotional service for, pick a number, 1 year, 5 years, 50 years, whatever the number is, and we still feel these pullings. Well, for how many billions of lifetimes were we going in the opposite direction? So it's like if you try to turn an aircraft carrier, it's not going to turn. It's going to go miles and miles and miles. It takes some time. So that momentum is there. The other point is the enjoyment. While I said that we don't have the DNA to enjoy, the desire, the propensity to enjoy, and this is going to sound contradictory, the living entity is in enjoying seeking. By nature, we want to be happy. We want to enjoy. That's our nature. That's the nature of the soul, is to be happy. So we're going to seek pleasure. We're pleasure-seeking entities. That DNA we have. We seek pleasure. Everything we do is trying to seek pleasure, either by reducing the pain or preventing it, or positively by trying to find pleasure. But everything is trying to make ourselves happy. So the way to stay out of the entanglement is to dovetail that with, okay, let me seek Krishna's pleasure. Then I'll feel that pleasure. So the desire for pleasure, there's nothing wrong with it. We can't get rid of it. We should never think, oh, I'm desiring this pleasure or that pleasure. You'll never get rid of that. That's part of your nature. What we have to get rid of is, let me find that pleasure on my own. And dovetail that into, well, let me find some pleasure for Krishna. Let me offer Krishna some nice foodstuffs, some nice flowers, whatever abilities we have. And then we feel that pleasure. So, because devotees, in one sense, we talk about how bad sense gratification is. Devotees are the most extreme sense gratifiers I know. Right? They enjoy the best food, the best music, the best association, the best art, the best of everything. They know how to enjoy. But they're doing it for Krishna, and decorating Krishna's temple and making nice outfits and nice garlands, doing these things for Krishna. As a result, Krishna says, okay, well, here, then the devotees enjoy. So their senses are gratified more than materialists are, but they're not seeking their own gratification, they're seeking to give that pleasure to Krishna. So by dovetailing that way, that helps us to stay aloof from that entanglement. And I don't know if that answers your question. Did I understand your question?
Yes, just increasing more just in the mind that keeps.
Yes, just stay dedicated and enthusiastic. Just no matter what, never let go. And then it gets stronger and stronger. And sometimes we'll be tested. The material energies, Maya Devi, her service is to keep all the miscreants away from Krishna. So sometimes she'll test us. Oh, you think you want Krishna? How about this? And Krishna's been known to break hearts sometimes. We're trying to do something and Krishna prevents it. So we just remain very determined, saying, Krishna, I don't care. I don't care if you make it hard. I don't care if you kick me. I don't care if you kill me. I don't care what you do. I want you. And so then when he sees that determination, then he helps. It becomes much, much easier. So we have to be very, very determined. And we have to know. And hope, you said we have to hope, but it's deeper than that. If we study the scriptures, Krishna makes it very clear. You don't have to hope, you have to know. The fact is, Krishna wants you back more than you want to be back. So he's going to help you. Guaranteed. We have to hold on to that. And then these little things become tolerable. So, okay, this is a temporary inconvenience. I'm not going to let it discourage me. And then there's a nice verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I can't remember the number, but it says, when there is a loving relationship and there is a cause for that relationship to be broken, but it's not broken, this is love. And so that's the attitude we take with Krishna. I'm going to try my hardest to please him and serve him. And if there's some difficulty or obstacle making it hard, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to do it because this is what I want to do. And when we have that dedication, then Krishna comes and clears all the obstacles. He says, you come with me. And so, yeah, be determined and don't let go. No matter what. And just stay in the association of devotees because they'll help. It's not us doing it. We can't do it by ourselves. So I think I've got 3 minutes before the ball says I must stop by 8:30. I had one other story. I don't think there's time to tell it. I'll try to tell it. It's about the association of devotees. There's a devotee was in the war. His name Parthasarathi Das. And he used to distribute books and try to preach to people. And this one person said, go away, I'm not interested, I don't want your Bhagavad Gita, I don't want to hear it. And so then a bomb went off, or IED or something, and that person, who was always rejecting the devotees, rejecting the books, he was dying. And Parthasarathi ran over to him and comforted him as best he could. He could see he's going to leave his body, but he just tried to comfort him. He chanted. And this person looked up and he said, I've rejected you, I pushed you away, you're in your Krishna, I didn't want anything, yet here at the time of my death, you're the only one here with me to help me. And so he became very grateful for this devotee's persistence. So this is just the potency of a devotee. The devotees will help you good times or bad times. They're very important. Anyway, sorry to carry on so long. Guess we can stop there. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.